Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I have a story for you that sounds like it's straight out of a movie. It's a story about a $5 ring, a whole lot of laughter, and an ending that nobody saw coming. It all started about 10 years ago. I was in my early 20s, broke as a joke, and head over heels for a girl named Sarah. Sarah was, well, she was everything: smart, funny, beautiful, and completely out of my league. Or so I thought. We had been dating for about 6 months, and our anniversary was coming up. I wanted to get her something special, something that showed her how much she meant to me. The problem was, my bank account was a wasteland. I was working a minimum wage job at a coffee shop, and most of my money went to rent and instant noodles. A fancy jewelry store was completely out of the question. So, I did what any resourceful, broke romantic would do. I started haunting thrift stores and flea markets. I spent weeks searching through piles of old clothes, dusty furniture, and boxes of forgotten trinkets, hoping for a miracle. And then, one rainy Tuesday afternoon, I found it, tucked away in a grimy glass case, nestled between a rusty pocket watch and a creepy porcelain doll, was a ring. It wasn't flashy. It was a simple design with a single, large, clear stone. It looked old, maybe a bit custom-y, but it had a certain charm. The tag on it read, "Glass ring, $5. $5. I could actually afford that. I bought it without a second thought, cleaned it up as best I could, and put it in a little box I'd also found at a thrift store. I was so proud of it. I thought it was elegant and unique, just like Sarah. The night of our anniversary, I took her to a modest little Italian restaurant, the fanciest place my budget could handle. My hands were sweating the whole time. After dinner, I took a deep breath, pulled out the little box, and slid it across the table. I told her how much she meant to me, how she made my world better, and how I wished I could give her the moon. She opened the box, and for a second, her eyes lit up. But then, her expression changed. A small, polite smile formed, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh," she said, "it's interesting. Where did you get it?" I proudly told her my story, the thrift store hunt, the $5 price tag. And that's when it happened. She laughed. It wasn't a mean laugh. Not really. It was more of a pitying, condescending chuckle. "A $5 ring? Oh, honey, that's sweet of you to try my heart sunk." I felt my face flush with embarrassment. The rest of the evening was awkward. The magic was gone. A few weeks later, we broke up. She said we were just on different paths in life. I knew what she meant. She wanted someone who could afford more than a $5 ring from a thrift store. I was devastated. I put the ring in a box and threw it in the back of my closet, wanting to forget the whole humiliating experience. Life went on. I finished my degree, got a better job, and eventually met someone new, someone who loved me for who I was, not for what I could buy. My wife, Emily, is the most down-to-earth person I know. We built a life together, had 2 amazing kids, and were perfectly happy. The $5 ring was a distant, painful memory I never revisited. Until about 6 months ago, we were doing a massive spring clean, getting rid of all the junk we'd accumulated over the years. I found the old box in the back of my closet. I was about to toss it in the donation pile when Emily stopped me. "What's that?" she asked. I told her the whole cringy story about Sarah and the ring. She didn't laugh. She picked it up and looked at it closely. "You know," she said, "this stone is really brilliant. It doesn't look like glass. Maybe you should get it looked at, just for fun." I scoffed at the idea. "It's a $5 piece of junk. Let's just get rid of it." But she was insistent to humor her. I agreed. I figured a jeweler would take one look, confirm it was worthless glass, and we could have a good laugh about it. So, the next weekend, I took it to a local, family-owned jewelry shop downtown. The jeweler was an older gentleman with a magnifying eyepiece permanently attached to his head. I handed him the ring and sheepishly explained where I got it. "My wife made me bring it in," I said. "I'm pretty sure it's just glass." He took the ring, put his eyepiece on, and examined it. He was silent for a long time. Too long. The silence in the shop was deafening. I started to get nervous. Finally, he looked up at me, his eyes wide. He took the eyepiece off and cleaned it, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Sir," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "where did you say you got this?" I told him again. "The thrift store? $5. He shook his head slowly. "This is not glass," he said. "This is a diamond. A very, very old and very, very large diamond." My jaw hit the floor. I thought he was joking. He explained it was an old cushion-cut diamond, likely from the 19th century, and it was exceptionally pure. He estimated it was around 30. He told me I needed to take it to a major gemological institute for official certification and a proper appraisal. He gave me a card for a specialist in the city. I walked out of that store in a daze. A diamond. My $5 thrift store ring was a real diamond. I called Emily immediately, and she started screaming with excitement. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. We took the ring to the specialist. Tests were run, documents were examined. The experts were buzzing. It turned out the ring was even more special than we thought. It was a historically significant piece that had once belonged to European royalty before disappearing in the early 20th century. It was presumed lost forever, only to end up in a thrift store donation box a century later. The official appraisal came back, and the number was staggering. They valued it in the millions. We were in shock. We went from a comfortable suburban life to holding a winning lottery ticket we never even knew we had. After a lot of discussion, Emily and I decided to sell it. It felt too valuable, too much of a responsibility to just keep in a safe. We decided to put it up for auction at a renowned auction house. The story generated a bit of media buzz. The lost royal jewel found in a thrift shop. It was surreal seeing our story on the news. And that brings us to yesterday, the day of the auction. We watched online, our hearts pounding in our chests. The bidding started high and just kept climbing. 1 million, 2 million, 3. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone. The bidding war was intense, going back and forth between two anonymous buyers. Finally, the auctioneer's hammer came down. Sold for $4.8 million. $4.8 million. I just sat there, stunned into silence. All I could think about was that rainy Tuesday, that dusty thrift store, and the $5 I spent. I thought about Sarah, laughing at my gift. I wondered what she would think now. A part of me felt a sense of vindication, a petty satisfaction. But honestly, that feeling faded quickly, because as I looked over at my wife, who was crying happy tears, and thought about our kids and the future we could now give them, I realized something. Sarah's rejection was one of the best things that ever happened to me. It led me down a different path, a path that brought me to Emily, my true treasure. The money is incredible, and it's going to change our lives, but it's not the most valuable thing I have. So, what's the lesson here? Maybe it's that you should always check your thrift store jewelry. Or maybe it's that true value isn't always obvious at first glance. Or maybe, just maybe, it's that sometimes getting laughed at and rejected can set you on the path to finding something and someone infinitely more precious than a multi-million-dollar diamond. Life has a funny way of working out. Thanks so much for listening to my crazy story. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. Would you have sold the ring? Let me know. Until next time, take care.